We are post-impeachment one day. We'll talk about what that means for the country, for the election, and yes, just how crazy the Democrats have really gotten. Also, there's some missing Epstein suicide footage, and can you get fired for claiming there are two sexes? That and more coming up. Well, they did it. They did it, team. Welcome to the Buck Sexton Show. We are not surprised. I've been telling you for quite some time that this is where all of this was heading, but we have seen the Democrats do exactly what was expected here. They have, in fact, impeached the President of the United States. It was a somber and prayerful moment for Democrats. We'll get into how much that was a complete pile of nonsense. Not surprising at all. We knew that would be the case. There are some people on Twitter who are now expressing their concerns. There's some libs who are worried that Mike Pence will now be president. No, that's not how it happens. It should also be noted that if you look at how many impeachment proceedings there have been, there's only obviously 3 presidents impeached. Andrew Johnson, Bill Clinton, and now Donald Trump. Nixon was not impeached, as we discussed yesterday. He resigned before he could be impeached and removed. But there's something of a fat tail, you'd say, at the end of this. There's a thicker end of the wedge toward recent time. This is becoming a more common occurrence. I think you could blame it perhaps on the saturation of political media coverage that's out there. People think that these things matter so much more than they do. I know seemingly normal, well-adjusted adults who really believe that Donald Trump is dragging this country into fascism and that we should all be terrified that he's going to start a nuclear war with Kim Jong-un. They really believe that. They also believe that the world is going to be on an unceasing path to annihilation of the human species unless we put AOC types in charge of the government to combat climate change. People that are aligned with this new Green Deal. So I don't know how anyone could wake up and think that they have good judgment, that they're well-adjusted, that they understand the world around them and take that point of view. But then again, I also don't know how anyone could see this Democrat impeachment as anything other than a complete absurdity. There is something so transparently dishonest about all of it. The way they speak about this impeachment, the way they present themselves. Here's the, I can't necessarily, unless you're watching us on The First, channel 248 on Pluto TV, I can't show you, but you can hear it, and I'll talk you through it. This is where they finally had the moment where they got to do what they've been waiting to do for 3 years. They've been wanting to do. They've been plotting to do this. In fact, the Mueller probe was intended to get us to this point. Pelosi slams the gavel down after they voted on articles of impeachment. A straight party line vote. Strictly partisan affair. Not a single Republican joining them in this utter sham. And here is what Pelosi sounded like then. Play it.
Article 1 is adopted. The question is on adoption of articles.
Now, you might be wondering, why was there that why did everybody? Because Nancy had already given instructions to the Democrats. This was already known. This had been reported on. I mentioned it to you yesterday here on the show. Don't clap. This is a somber, prayerful. Let's make this look serious. Nancy Pelosi was wearing black yesterday, and everyone was pointing out how that's because it's so serious. And yes, it is serious. It was a funeral for sanity on the House floor. That's what was going on. The death of rationality. So in a sense, I'm happy that they wore black, or that Nancy Pelosi did. There were some others as well. And she had to wave them off when they started clapping, like the angry grandma who said, up, no ice cream until you're done with your dinner. Waved off the Democrats who were showing the American people what this is really all about. They hate Trump. They hate what he stands for. They hate how he acts, how he sounds, who he is, who supports him, by the way. They hate Trump supporters. Don't ever forget that. It's not just the president that they despise. It is the base of Trump support that they find to be the ill-educated, unwashed masses. They hate Trump supporters, too. They call you racist. They say it's not possible to be a good person and support this president. That means those of you listening to this show, you are included in the animosity that these Democrats, and by the way, their supporters, have toward this president. This is not just about one man. This is about a movement. This is about much more than just Donald Trump. And that's why it's troubling. It should be troubling to all of us as we see this. But there's also something of unintentional comedy. Earlier in the week, I think we had a title for our podcast here, which you should subscribe to the Buck Sexton Show podcast on the iHeart app if you have not already. But we had a show that was the unfunny joke of impeachment. That is what was being discussed. That's what was being talked about, the unfunny joke of impeachment, because it's clear to me that they don't mean for this in any way to be anything other than solemn and serious, but a normal person would look at this and say, hold on a second. This is absurd. We've known this is coming all along. I'm not Nostradamus. I'm not some great predictor, better than most in politics, but it's so hard to know. No one really knows what the future is. And we've known that impeachment was coming all along. But before the gavel had even hit on the dais, is that the way we would say it? Up there on the podium we'd say, right? The dais is something else. I just want to use a fancy word. Word of the day, dais. Know what it is, Buck. Before they had even done that, there was talk of the next step. You see, here's the problem the Democrats face. What do they do about the fact that they don't have just the sheer political muscle in the Senate? They don't have the votes. And as much as they have pretended that this impeachment process was akin to a criminal legal proceeding, it is not. Clearly, Adam Schiff was stacking the deck at every opportunity, doing all that he could to manipulate the process along the way, releasing phone records of people that didn't prove anything. By the way, what was that all about? Just trying to smear people he didn't like that are involved in this? Hey, these guys are our enemies, Democrats, and they talk to each other. Rudy Giuliani, John Solomon, Devin Nunes. Look at this. I've got their phone records. Why would he release them? Why not redact it? It was just meant to embarrass people. It was meant to feed more red meat, or dare I say, more soggy tofu to the left-wing base. It is stunning how quickly they're willing on the Democrat side to throw away any of the rules that they have claimed even a day before to hold so dear. It is stunning to see the way that in something that could only be really a symptom of multiple personality disorder of some kind among the Democrats. One day, it's the process is sacrosanct. How dare anyone think of doing anything about this? The next day, it's easy for them to bastardize that same process to suit their political whims. I mean, this is a remarkable feat of brazenness and dishonesty, and I bring you the latest in this. Will there even be a Senate trial? Now, you might be saying, Buck, hold on a second. I remember from civics class, or just from being a well-informed citizen, that the House votes to impeach, and then they pass the articles of impeachment to the Senate, and the Senate holds a trial. This is the process. Oh, but now there's this new wrinkle that they present. Nancy Pelosi has suggested that they will withhold the articles of impeachment. Of course. So the process is sacred until it doesn't give Democrats the power to do whatever they want, and then the process must be disrupted, corrupted, cast aside. Doesn't matter. Oh, I see. Now they're going to hold the articles of impeachment. There are a few reasons why they do this. For one, it allows them to create this, assuming that this happens, and by the way, I think it's a good chance it will, that they will hold it for some period of time, because what they're going to say is the Senate is doing something that is unfair. The Senate is already in the tank. You have members of Congress that are saying that Mitch McConnell can't give a fair trial, that Mitch McConnell is, I mean, how stupid do they think we are? Does anyone think that Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi or Adam Schiff or Jerry Nadler are impartial in this? Think about the bizarro land that Democrats are living in. The Democrats they're just objective and truthful and honest in this. They're politicians doing a political process, but they're just objective and truthful in judging this impeachment proceeding. But you can't try. Republicans aren't impartial. This is crazy. This is now the new argument. This is what they offer up. I don't know how to feel, whether I should be enraged or amused or just deeply troubled for the collective mental health of the Democratic Party, because they're nuts. They've gone nuts. This is not normal. This is not rational or reasonable. This is something else. I told you, Trump has broken them. They are a broken political party. So they're going to withhold the articles of impeachment unless the Senate allows the Senate majority, which is Republican, allows the House majority, the Democrats, to determine what the Senate rules will be. You see, when the House was in Democrat hands in this regard, they got to do whatever they wanted. And Republicans said, well, it's gross, it's unfair, but they're doing, they're allowed to do this as they go. We can't really stop them. I mean, I would come into and say it's not fair. I mean, I wasn't claiming that there was some, sit-in procedure or something that you could just lock arms with Republican congressmen in front of the meeting rooms and not allow this to occur. I mean, if they want to have a sham impeachment proceeding with Schiff running it, they can do it. And they did. But now that they had their way, they are trying to dictate how the Senate will conduct its business. And if the Senate does not give in to their demands, they say, well, we won't even pass along the articles of impeachment. We're just going to hold them because, that's right, the process when Republicans have the votes is unfair. This is central to the Democratic Party. Anytime they lose, it is illegitimate. Whether it is an election or it is the impeachment proceeding or it is the end of the Mueller probe, whatever it may be, anytime Democrats lose, the outcome is illegitimate. It's never that they just lost, regroup, be adults, live to fight another day. No. Illegitimate, unfair, you cheated. Democrats are the kid that anytime he loses, whether it's checkers or chess or kickball, goes and cries to the teacher and says they cheated. They're doing it again. That is what is happening right now, assuming that this strategy, and they do it all the time, whether they do it in this case or not doesn't change the underlying truth, but assuming that they deploy this strategy, even for a few days, it is meant to undermine the process for the Senate control, the Republican-controlled Senate. You see, Pelosi knows something. She has to make sure that there isn't a bipartisan vote held in the Senate. Even one or two Democrat senators who want to keep their jobs and realize how insane this is, one or two go along and vote to acquit the president. You would have an entirely party-lined House vote to impeach. Democrats all in lockstep, and Republicans are like, you people are insane. Good job, Republicans. Justin Amash, by the way. Some of us knew never to trust this guy. A little too sanctimonious. A little too Comey-esque, actually. I'm just going to say it. And then, some of you are mad at me for that, and that's okay. I'm right about this one, all right? Justin Amash, not to be trusted. Ben Sass, also not to be trusted. People that run in really red districts and then have good voting records or seem like they're going along with the Republican Party on stuff, but then at key moments break with it, that's opportunism. That's not being principled. So I have to ask this, though. What are the Democrats going to say? What are the Democrats going to put forward for us when there's a bipartisan vote to, at least somewhat bipartisan, a few Democrats, to acquit Trump? Who wins in the court of public opinion then? Who has the stronger argument? Who is the side here? Which side is being more viciously partisan and unfair? the House that impeached or the Senate that acquitted. Pelosi knows this, so she has concerns. But there's also another possibility here. At least by delaying, and who knows how long they will create this delay. Perhaps they'll do a Merrick Garland and there'll just be no vote on this ever. But by delaying sending the articles of impeachment to the Senate, by stalling the process, you have a repeat of exactly what they did in the Mueller probe, the Weissman probe, as we should call it. Make broad allegations, smear someone, defame them, but then make sure that there is no way for them to be cleared. If the Mueller report had said, this is President Trump committed a crime, here's where he committed a crime, people could look at it, adjudicate it, and say, that's not a crime. Nice try, though. But instead, what he said, well, here are 10 possible counts of obstruction. We're not saying it's obstruction. We're not saying it's not. How do you defend against that? So is it obstruction or is it not? Well, it allows crazy libs to run around saying there were 10 counts of obstruction. No. 10 possible counts of obstruction? These are weasel words. This is intellectual cowardice, abuse of the system, bad faith. Democrats are doing it again. They lost another game of kickball, and they're going to go run and cry to the teacher and say the rules are unfair.
Good evening. It has been a day for the history books here in the nation's capital, though historians may not look kindly on what transpired behind me here today. William Jefferson Clinton is now the first elected president to be impeached by the House, the second president in all of history. He says he will stay on the job while his fate is already lying before the U.S. Senate in the form of 2 approved articles of impeachment agreed to here today.
Back in 1998, Brian Williams. He looks the part, he sounds the part. Doesn't really have to do anything other than that to be a multimillionaire lib news broadcaster. Historians may not look kindly on this. May not look kindly on Clinton, who was acting in a completely inappropriate and illegal fashion, broke the law. There's no question that he broke the law while he was president. Committed a felony, for which he was disbarred, by the way. It has nothing to do with him being president. And yet, historians might not look kindly on that one. Because the narrative was, Clinton is so great, he is above the law. That was the Democrat narrative then. Now the narrative is, Trump is so terrible, he is beneath the law. This is the way they have switched it around.
21 years ago this week, I spoke here on impeachment. In this, sadly, history will not treat Democrats well. They'll be forever remembered as the Senator Joe McCarthy's of our time. So blinded by their hatred of President Trump, they abandoned American rights of due process and fairness and just decency. Reminiscent of Joe McCarthy, they assaulted the Constitution, took glee in secret hearings, blocked evidence, and switched charges like rogue prosecutors. Ultimately, they chose abuse of power because they practice it so well. President Trump committed no crime or impeachable offense, none. His legacy won't be stained. Democrats will. We'll look back at these days in shame because Trump haters in Congress, like red haters of the past, are willing to plunge America into darkness for raw political gain. This impeachment betrays the nation, the Constitution, and the American people. I vote no.
The president's been driving these guys crazy because he's getting things done. He's doing what he said he was going to do. He's having results. Taxes have been cut, regulations reduced, unemployment at its lowest level in 50 years, the economy growing, Gorsuch and Kavanaugh on the court, out of the Iran deal, embassy in Jerusalem, hostages home from North Korea, and a new NAFTA agreement coming tomorrow. But guess what? When you drain the swamp fights back. And they started attacking the president before the election even.
This has been coming for 3 years. There's no question about it. We know, we have people on the record of the Democratic Party saying it. How will history look back on this? Well, here's the truth of the matter. It'll depend on what happens in the election in the fall. The whole purpose of this was to create the asterisk Trump. The whole purpose of this was to give libs a narrative that they could sink their teeth into. Here, for example, is how many of them responded to this as soon as the Pelosi gavel had been slapped down. Here is what they were saying about the meaning behind all this, how important it all is. Play 34.
On the 1,063rd day of his presidency, Donald Trump was impeached. That now becomes the single most important fact about the Trump presidency. He was impeached. This is the single most important day in the Trump presidency.
President Trump was impeached for one reason, because he deserved it.
You are not asleep. This is not a dream. This is really happening. This is your life. This is our country and our time. It is Wednesday, the 18th of December in the year 2019, and President Donald Trump is impeached.
Oh no! What will we ever do? The most important day of the Trump presidency. I would want to ask, I think that was Lawrence O'Donnell. I think I'd want to ask him, was the most important day of Clinton's presidency the day he got impeached? Because I feel like he's probably never said that before. And then Jeffrey Toobin, among the worst and biggest hack legal analysts you'll find anywhere, of course, chief legal analyst at CNN. He's just wrong all the time about everything. It's amazing. It's amazing how wrong everyone is at CNN, and no one seems to care. You know, big dossier man Jim Sciutto, dossier and chief propagandist for Russia collusion man Jake Tapper. None of them seem to say, hey, you know what? We made a little mistake here. Maybe we should recalibrate a little bit. Nope, just keep on moving on to the next one. Because the goal is to take down Trump. And in fact, the media is gleeful because they believe, and I think they're correct, there are two dynamics that led to this impeachment. One of them is the media trying to reassert its authority, to control the narrative, to dictate politics in this country the way they feel they did back in the Nixon-Watergate affair. Trump is a challenge to and an attack on the journo class, right? The echelon of journalists in this country that think that they're the ones that inform us and therefore think about how much power they really have over our politics and just our perception of what's really happening in this country. So that's one component of all of this. And then you also have the desire that Democrats have. I mean, there's just no question the Democrats needed something that they could say, see, it's not legitimate. He's impeached. So the journos wanted this really badly, and the Democrats needed something to say to their constituents. Hey, hold on a second. Look what we've done. We impeached this president. He's not really legitimate. In fact, Nancy Pelosi said he's not legitimate. Now, I would tell you, in other countries, once you have the opposition party, which is what the Democrats currently are, once you have the opposition party to the regime in power talking about illegitimacy, you have a major issue on your hands that can only get worse with time. The Democrats talk a lot about our system. They talk about how they respect it so much, and as I've said to you, and until the next day when they don't, they respect the system until they have no more need of the system, or they want to change it, and then they will undermine it. They'll cut it down. It's just all about expedience. Expedience in the service of the Democrats' lust for power. They had to impeach this president because it was also something that the left-wing base demanded. You had Rashida Tlaib, for example, being so solemn and somber. If those words meant exactly the opposite of what they mean, on her way to cast her vote for impeachment. Play 32, please.
Hey, everyone. I am on my way to the United States House floor to impeach President Trump. On behalf of my incredible district, 13 districts strong. Let's do this.
Yeah, let's do this. Let's impeach him. Oh, no, somber and serious. I can just see Pelosi wagging her finger in her face. Excuse me, this is somber and serious. No, it's not. It's absolutely not. And the fact that many of these same Democrats, notably Pelosi and Nadler, among others, were staunch, brazen defenders of Clinton for actually committing crimes. They managed to hold on despite the fact that Bill Clinton, oh, and I love this. Oh, at least Clinton was contrite. Tapper was putting this one out on Twitter yesterday. He's the worst. Bill Clinton was contrite after lying to the public all the time, lying under oath, which is a crime, and then there was DNA evidence. I know there are young people listening, so we won't get into the specifics here, but it was getting really difficult for Clinton to continue to cling to this fiction that nothing happened. There was evidence, hard evidence, of what exactly happened there. He was contrite when he got caught, and also he was contrite except for the fact that his wife was saying it was a vast right-wing conspiracy. Oh, that's right. The person that the Democrats are still so upset didn't become president in 2016 because she's so fantastic and ethical. Think about the precedent that this sets, and I have to say, I don't know how I'd be able to push back against it. If we now just have a system where the majority in the House can really hijack the functioning of the legislative branch just in order to have a big we hate the president session, which is what this is, how are we going to stop the next time especially if we get one of these Democrat socialists in, how are we going to stop the Democrats from, or just stop Republicans from saying, this Democrat president's horrible and we're going to impeach him, and now this is just a tool of opposition to the presidency. The nuclear option, if you go back and look at times in the last 20 years where the political equivalent of the nuclear option was deployed, you will notice a pattern. When Harry Reid wanted to just ram through federal judges, left-wing activist judges, #resistance, which we see today against Trump, judges with appallingly bad decisions, lawless decisions. #resistance. Harry Reid, a Democrat, decided to change the rules in the Senate when it suited his short-term political interests and need. The nuclear option was deployed. When it came to Obamacare, was there a single Republican vote to create a massive new government entitlement program? No, not a single Republican vote. And if you want to talk nuclear option, they also used for part of the passage of Obamacare reconciliation, which is a budgetary maneuver never meant to be used for the passage of major legislation affecting trillions of dollars over the course of its lifespan. That's absurd, right? But they went nuclear on that. Party line vote for Obamacare. Reconciliation when they didn't even have the votes. They just changed the rules. What do you hear from Democrats after they lost this election to President Trump in 2016? Maybe we should pack the Supreme Court, they say. Maybe we should get rid of the Electoral College. And now, after 20 years since the Bill Clinton impeachment, a little more than 20 years now, when we've all been told that this needs to be a bipartisan affair, who goes nuclear with a strict party line vote? And congrats to the Republicans, the Republican caucus, and just holding it all together here. Not a single Republican voted for this, not one. Who went nuclear? Democrats. Now, they'll point to all this malfeasance they say in the past. They'll say, oh, Bush lied, the Iraq War. A lot of Democrat votes for that. Hillary Clinton was a Democrat vote for the Iraq War, folks. I mean, you look at, where's the equivalent on the other side? Where do you have Republicans saying we're going to remake the system, we're going to tear it down, we're going to do whatever we have to do to get our way? We will go nuclear to get what we want. I'll say, oh, Buck, but Mitch McConnell expanded. Well, he just expanded what Harry Reid did because Harry Reid broke the dam. Okay, well, I mean, if that's the way we're going to play, that's where we're going to play. And now it's going to account for Supreme Court justices, too, straight up or down vote. Fine. But whenever you see breaking down of barriers that are meant to be at least a bulwark, a speed bump against majoritarian tyranny or a one-party tyranny, it's the Democrats who are doing it over and over and over again. And they have harnessed an emotional socialist left that doesn't believe that there's good faith to be had with regard to the other side. There's not compromise that has to be reached. They have to get their way, because when they get their way, everything will be better. The country will be better, so who could stand in the way of that? Whenever the nuclear option is deployed, it is Democrats who have pushed the button. That is what you see, and there'll be a lot more of that I might add, if they have the power to do it. We'll see what Mitch McConnell's able to come up with in the Senate, assuming that the House even passes these articles of impeachment to the Senate. But there is only one side that is kicking at the load-bearing walls of this republic, gleefully and self-righteously, and it is the Democrats.
Democrats did not choose this impeachment. We did not wish for it. We voted against it. We voted against it once. We voted against it twice. We voted against it 3 times as recently as July. We did not want this. However, President Trump's misconduct has forced our constitutional republic to protect itself.
Serious people cannot take the Democrats seriously. That's where we are now. If you're a person who understands the English language, has some sense of ethics, history, boundaries, truth, you can't take the Democrats seriously. They don't want this. They've been saying they've wanted it for years. And also, why would they not want this? If the president committed, this is a nonsensical, and I really mean that. This does not make sense as a position in the debate. Why would they not want to impeach the president? Oh, because it's solemn and prayerful. No, they're just trying to add gravitas. They're trying to just, like baubles on a Christmas tree, they're trying to just make this seem, dress it up, create something else. They should desperately want to impeach this president if he has done what is not just what is alleged to do, if he has committed the gravity of the crimes that they seem to think he has committed, even though they're not even crimes and they're certainly not grave. I am sitting here hearing all these Democrat arguments, looking at, yesterday I had to watch this stuff. I mean, I was at home, and they're just getting up there one after another. Just, it's like they're giving the same stump speech. There are all these Democrat members of Congress. I couldn't help but have moments where I said, who? Who is this person? But the Republic is at risk, and if we don't vote for the... What? Congressman from where? I mean, who are these people? I mean, the good news is that at least the only place that Congress's overall approval rating is going is down the tubes, as it should. Although there was some upside from the Republicans yesterday. The Republicans, some of them had a very good showing. Representative Doug Collins, remember, I always liked that guy. I interviewed him when I worked at the Hill. He was a good dude. Here's what he had to say. Play 28.
It has been said today, where is bravery? I'll tell you where bravery is found and courage is found. It's found in this minority who has lived through the last year of nothing but rules being broken, people being put down, questions not being answered, and this majority saying, be damned with anything else. We're going to impeach and do whatever we want to do. Why? Because we won an election. I guarantee you, one day you'll be back in the minority, and it ain't going to be that fun. Because when you look at it, when you actually trash the rules of this house, you ought to really look at what did you gain at the end by trashing the institution you claim to love.
What did you gain at the end? That is the question Democrats are faced with right now. What is the upside here, other than certainly energizing and really placating the socialist base of the Democratic Party now? The people that are just frothing with rage against Donald Trump. For what, by the way? I always want to ask this question. They hate this president so much. Has he presided over a massive recession? No. Are we sending troops off to countries that we don't need to be in at all, and we're getting our soldiers are getting killed, coming back maimed, struggling with PTSD, struggling with what was I doing over there? Not under this president. I mean, he hasn't completely ended the war in Afghanistan, but he's getting close. He's prevented a much deeper intervention in Syria that the national security apparatus, bipartisan national security apparatus, was looking for. The neocons still lurk all over D.C., waiting for the opportunity to tell us to go take over and remake another country. What is the thing that Trump has done that is so horrible? What is the border policy? Is that really where we're going to go, where the president decided that we weren't going to have an open border? That's what they hate so very, very much. They won't admit that they want an open border. I really ask this. The people who are so terrified about Trump, who think he's a fascist, who think he's a dictator, all these things, do they have any evidence whatsoever for the insanity that they constantly spew?